We're going to take another look at the switch instruction here. This is from a previous example. I have modified it a little bit. This is a function, and it is going to accept a grade point value from 0 to 4. So we're using a 4-point scale, and it's going to take that number from 0 to 4, convert it into a letter grade. We're going to store that letter grade in a variable called letter grade, and at the end we're going to return that variable. Now, what I had here before is a return instruction for every one of these 6 cases here. And as a matter of fact, I'm just going to pause and revert back to that so you can see what we had before. Okay, here's the original function. We pass in a letter grade A through F, and then we look at that letter grade A through F. And if it's an A, we return a 4. If it's a B, we return a 3, and so on. If it's none of those, we return a -1. And this works just fine. And we tested it. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a little change. And what I'm going to do is, instead of doing a return instruction here, I'm going to do an assignment statement where I assign a 4 to a variable, and then a 3 and a 2 and a 1 and a 0 and a -1. And then after I get out of the switch statement down here, I return that value. So I'm going to, rather than retype the code, I'm just going to pause here and revert to that code, and then we'll pick up. Okay, so here I've changed the function a little bit. Everything up here is the same. I have added a local variable where I'm going to store the value to return, and then when I fall out of the switch instruction down here, I'm going to return letter grade. Okay. Now, I'm getting an error that I didn't get before. And if I pause the mouse over here, it says control cannot fall through from one case label, case 4, to another. And this is kind of a strange little quirk of C#. They require that you put a break instruction here. And you have to put that after every single case. Now, if what you're doing is you're doing a return, that's not required. But if you're not doing a return, then you have to put the word break here, and notice the red wavy lines are disappearing as I do this, and apparently we even have to do a break down here. Okay, so what that means, you know what a break instruction does. It says jump out of this instruction and go to the next one. So whenever I encounter a break, I'm going to jump out of the switch, I'm going to return the letter grade, and that's the end of the function. Since the compiler requires you to put this in, it could just as well say that when you get done with whatever you put up here, and you'd have multiple statements here. Obviously, we've got multiple statements right now. But whenever you run out of statements and you run into the word case, that you just do a break anyway. It didn't do that. I assume the reason it didn't do that is because this is based on the C language. The C language allowed you to not put the break in there. If you didn't put the break in there, it would fall through and execute the next stuff. So that gives you a little bit more flexibility. It also makes the instruction a little bit more complicated. Anyway, regardless, in C#, unless you do a return instruction here, you must put a break instruction. And fortunately, that was a common mistake in C. People would forget to put the break in, and then it would go on and execute some more instructions down here, which they probably didn't really intend to do. So if you don't put the break in, C# will remind you, and that's the way that you fix that error, is by putting the break instruction in.